Shuklam Bharadaram Vishnum Shashivarnam Chaturbhujam Prasannavadanam Dhyayet Sarva Vignopashantaye Gurur Brahma Gurur Vishnur Gurur Devo Maheshwaraha Gurur Sakshat Parabrahma Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Some who would like to get us started?
I'll start.
Please go ahead.
It's wisdom alone makes one wise, right?
Yeah, I think the subtitle of the topic might have
okay.
changed between books. Yeah, that could
Okay.
be the one.
All right. Wisdom alone makes one wise. This then is the lakshana, the definition of a wise person. To be wise requires wisdom, nothing else. How a wise person walks, talks, and sits means nothing. Anyone can learn to walk in a way. And if the definition of a wise person is that he or she talks slowly, then everyone who talks slowly would be a jnani. The speed at which one talks or how one walks means nothing. Wisdom alone makes one wise, just as being friendly is not. Similarly, some people ask how they can develop love. All that is to be done is to love. What else can you do? You cannot discover love outside of love. If you want to discover more love, be loving. Create conditions that will help you discover love. And discover love, people often create conditions in themselves, knowingly or unknowingly, that is of love. If you avoid doing this, you will find that you are loving. Love is nothing but the expressed form of fullness, ananda. Just as the wheat flour takes on names such as bread, rolls, and muffins, so too love is subject to various forms. The different names given to wheat represent modifications of the wheat. Similarly, love emotion, which is a modification or manifestation of ananda. If you analyze love, you will find nothing but ananda. The manifest form of ananda is love, and love itself turns into such natural qualities, sympathy, compassion, and giving, depending upon the situation. And when that same love is distorted in any way, it becomes karma, leading to negative emotions, greed, anger, depression, and so on. These are nothing but one expression of ananda, love, which is why we say love is Bhagavan, meaning that the expressed form of Ananda is Bhagavan. What is Bhagavan? The essential form of Bhagavan is Sat Chit Ananda, and the expressed form of Ananda, Ishvara, the Lord, is love. The modifications of this love can be either positive or negative. Sympathy and compassion are examples of positive modifications of love, whereas negative modifications are anger, greed, jealousy, and so on. What is there is one ananda, expressed or unexpressed. Unexpressed, it is the swarupa, the very nature of fullness, which is the definition of ananda. Expressed, it becomes, sorry. What is there is one ananda, expressed or unexpressed. Unexpressed, it is the swarupa, the very nature of fullness, which is the definition of ananda. Expressed, it becomes love, prema. We shall see more of this definition later. Here, the sthita prajna is the one who discovers the ananda in him or her. The person knows there is nothing other than oneself. When one says, I am the whole, it means that the person in himself or herself, the fulfillment of all desires. We shall see as we proceed how the discovery of oneself and the fulfillment of desires are not separate but identical.
Awesome. So, as I mentioned, chapter 55th shloka, you have to note it down. Just remember that 255. Anytime you feel like you need something to keep you happy, go back to this one shloka and divide that into the different. I posted from here onwards till 72. There are 6 or 7 criteria that Bhagavan provides. So I actually provided that in the group. So start that message. So simple definition of Sthita Prajna is Atmanyeva Atmana Tushta. Somebody who is happy, full, and content within themselves. And that is what we need to ultimately get to, because Ananda is not something that we need externally coming from to us. It's more about what's internal and how we keep ourselves, like, how we reflect the Ananda from inside. And as soon as you start reflecting it, everything that comes back to us, as we say, everything has equal reaction. So we also start receiving that, we also start seeing that light, that Ananda, from every other angle. So it's a very, very, very important sloka. If there is one definition that you want to memorize forever, that is Atmanyeva Atmana Tushtaha from Shloka 255. Okay, with that, we'll move to Shloka 256. Who would like to read this one?
I can, Shriji.
I heard Bhaskar ji first. Please go ahead.
Dukkeshvanudvignamanaha Sukeshu Vigatasprihaha Vitaraga Bhayakrodaha Stitadhir Muniruchyate.
A couple minor things, Bhaskar ji. The first one, Vigna Manaha, is a Dhirgha. That is, Dhirgam there represents plural. And Vitaraga Bhayakrodhaha is a Hrasva.
Okay, Guruji. Can I try one more, Guruji?
Yeah, please go ahead.
Thank you, Guruji. Dukkeshvanudvignamanaha Sukeshu Vigatasprihaha Vitaraga Bhayakrodaha Stitadhir Muniruchyate.
Fantastic.
Thank you, Guruji. Dukkeshu, in adversities, anudvigna manaha, not affected, sukeshu, in pleasures, vigata sprihaha, one who is without yearning, vita raga bhaya krodaha, one who is free from longing, fear and anger, munihi, the wise person, stitadhi, one whose knowledge remains, uchyate, is said. The one who is not affected by adversities, who is without yearning for pleasures, and is free from longing, fear, and anger, is said to be a wise person whose knowledge remains. Arjuna's question, as we have seen, was answered completely in the previous verse. Being awake to yourself and in yourself alone, you discover your joy, your fulfillment, and you discover it by yourself. Meaning through knowledge. Without self-knowledge, you cannot discover happiness in yourself. How you can discover happiness in yourself by yourself when the self is unhappy? Generally, you are happy if your desire is fulfilled, but here you are happy with yourself without fulfilling any
Sorry, my bad. We are here.
any desire. The nature of the Atma is free from any sense of limitation, and the person who is awake to this particular fact, the Sthita Prajna, is free from unhappiness. As desires arise in his or her mind, the person is not affected by them. Because of being happy with himself or herself, this then was how Krishna described the characteristics of a person of wisdom when Arjuna wanted to know how a wise person responds to the world. Even though one's response to the world does not necessarily reveal how much wisdom one has, still Arjuna thought that the spontaneous expressions of a wise person interacting in the world would reflect those values to be cultivated assiduously by a seeker, and would therefore serve as a handy reference. Knowing how a wise person expresses himself or herself in the world is not for judging whether a person is wise or otherwise. It is not that we have a matrix of norms indicating the exact behavior of the wise person against which everyone is measured. It is only to know what I should follow in order to be wise. Guruji, you want me to continue, or
Yeah, please go ahead.
what was it that the wise person followed before becoming wise, that made him or her wise, that continues as the spontaneous expression of the person? This is what Arjuna really wanted to know, because the characteristics of Sthita Prajna become the very means, the sadhanas, to be followed by a mumukshu. Krishna understood this to be the spirit of Arjuna's question and answered it accordingly.
Okay, so take a little moment here and then we'll ask somebody else to read. So we are talking about Sthita Prajna. Jna, and I think I'm just going to remind what we were talking about and breaking that word. Jna means knowledge, any knowledge, and the knowledge about an apple, knowledge about a phone, knowledge about anything is called jnana. And then you turn it into prajna, which means when you add that prajna as the prefix, it becomes wisdom. And wisdom is the difference between just having knowledge and having wisdom is very, very distinct, right? And sthita prajna, the prajna that will stay with you, that is constant in you permanently forever. So that is called as sthita prajnatvam, and that is what Bhagavan is trying to do the next steps of dukkeshvanudvignamanaha anudvignamanaha and Sukheshu Vigatasprihaha. So just break that into two different advices. Just first line is the first quatlet. He's talking about in Dukkha, somebody doesn't get agitated. In Sukha, somebody doesn't feel elated. Vita Raga Bhaya Krodha. Vita is free from everything. So from Raga, Bhaya, Ragam, Dvesham, and Bhayam and Krodham. Sthitadhir Muniruchyate. That person is called as Sthitadhihi. So this is another word. There is the Sthita Prajna we were talking about, and this is Sthitadhi, such a Sthitadhi, somebody who is the one whose knowledge remains. Dhi actually is also Dhiratvam, right? Somebody who is courageous to just have that permanent stature or status of Ananda. That person is called as a Muni, is what that's being said. So very important, just make slashes. These are all steps to follow. These are all sadhanas, practical steps that are being given. And if you remember, connected to the Shravanam, Mananam, Nididhyasanam. Shravanam purely gives jnanam. Shravanam certainly does not make somebody sthita prajna. Mananam takes that person to the next stage of prajna. And nididhyasana, practicing it over a period of time and making sure that the knowledge does not have any doubts. So in mananam phase, we are just clearing all the doubts. And now whatever I've heard about, what my real nature is, that is setting in, and I don't have any doubts about it. I actually clearly understand what aham brahmasmi means. And then now moving that into a constant, permanent ananda, and I'm reflecting that throughout every activity that I do. And how do I reflect that? By following these steps. So if you want to write down 1, 2, 3, 4 and take these as, I want to practice this. Let me see if I can do this one for one day. I am not going to have udvignamanam if there is a dukkha. So just, these are very practical steps that should be followed over a period of time to get us to that sthita prajna or this muni state. Okay, with that, we'll move into the next part. Who would like to read this one?
I can, Sriji.
Please go ahead, Anitaji.
The threefold source of sorrow. Sorrow or pain, dukkha, has three sources. Adhyatmika, Adi Bhautika, and Adi
Daivika.
Dvaik. Huh? I'm sorry.
Daivika.
Adi Daivika. Adhyatmika is pain for which the source is your own body, mind, and senses from a stomachache onwards. The second source of sorrow, Adibhautika, are the situations around you, including the people and bugs that irritate you. Finally, Adi Daivika is the pain or sorrow caused by such things as earthquakes and lightning. This kind of pain is not created by your brother in law or anyone else, but is from a source that is absolutely divine natural phenomenon over which you have no control whatsoever. You may try to control mosquitoes with certain sprays that will destroy them, but there is nothing you can do to prevent an earthquake. Thus, while the source of sorrow is threefold, they are not different types of sorrow. Sorrow may express itself in 100 different ways: weeping, howling, kicking, moaning, and so on. But the sorrow itself is one and the same. The word dukkeshu in the verse is in the plural because the source of sorrow is threefold, as explained by Shankara in his commentary on this verse. And those whose minds are not affected or shaken by the sorrow arising from these three sources of pain are said to be wise. Because the sources of pain are always active, pain is possible for a wise person, but he or she is not affected by it. What then is the response of a wise man when his head aches? Will his head ache? Is the first question. Or let us start from the very beginning. Does he even have a head? Yes, because the wise man continues to.
Sorry, I'll just scroll a little bit more. Yeah, you're here.
Yes, because the one continues to have a head, it may ache. Now, when his head aches, does he know it or not? After all, he is Satchit Ananda. Being Satchit Ananda, what happens when there is a headache? Does he recognize it? The verse indicates that he does by saying, when such pain occurs, the wise man is not affected. When anyone recognizes dukkha, there is dukkha for him. But what happens afterward? The person is shaken by pain or sorrow and then he becomes disturbed. Dviguna,
Udvigna
right?
manaha.
Udvigna manaha. Any disturbances from the three sources described above can make it a reality. The headache is there, you recognize it, and then you worry about it until your whole head and everything else aches. You may even become a pain to everyone around you. You are the only one with a neck pain. You will talk so much about it and make such a fuss that your pain also becomes everyone else's pain in the neck.
So we'll just, wait
Wise.
for one quick second. Sorry, we'll just go back to this one and notice in your day when you're doing like these practical steps, Adhyatmika, Adi Bhautika, and Adi Daivika. Just note down what in this is causing the more pain. And what I have noticed and what Swamiji jokes about is when it is Adhyatmika, we are very forgiving ourselves. So we feel sorry, like, we are sad, but at the same time, we forgive ourselves and we pamper ourselves. In the case of a neck pain, we tell everybody about it, but we are not cursing our if it is a stomach ache or a headache, we are not cursing our head. We are just saying, oh, I have a headache, and we are complaining about it, but we are very forgiving. Similarly, in cases like earthquakes and lightning, we say, I cannot do much about it. So therefore, and I'm not going to get angry on God. So I will also forgive that. The people that get the brunt of our anger is usually in the Adhi Bhautika. So this is the one area, and I feel like, over a period of time in the last 100 years at least, you've noticed people were a lot more tolerant, and now there's a lot more complaints that go on. And, there's the option of, okay, you know what, I don't need to talk to you, or something of that sort. So it is, if we can get a lot more patience with people around us, and note that nobody is trying to give us sorrow, they're just trying to keep themselves happy. And if we can find common ground on giving happiness for each other, I think that is a way to just deal with this problem. The other two are less of a problem, is how Swamiji used to explain it. Okay, with that context.
Guruji, is it the main reason why we use Shanti, 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 three Shantis?
Absolutely. Exactly. Yeah, that's
And
it.
then they also suggest to have the last Shanti at a lower pitch because it goes for the Adhyatmika inside our body. And the big one, the first one for outside to the next, to the last is our own Shanti, which is the smallest in its loudness. Okay,
I heard that, but I haven't seen a Vedic reference to that yet, Bhaskarji, so I cannot vouch for it. What, like,
Okay.
in different Vedas, depending on which Vedam you're chanting, the Shanti, Shanti, Shanti. So the way we chant is, it also differs. So that there is a lower note on the first two T's and the upper note. That's the only thing I've noticed. But I did hear about this. I don't know what the reference is though.
Okay, Guruji. Thank you, Guruji.
Okay. Awesome. Okay, we'll go to the next one. Who would like to read this one?
Guruji,
Uh-huh.
Sriji, so this coronavirus is Adi Daivika, according to you?
Adi Daivika. Yeah, Adi Daivika. So it actually started as Adi Daivika, and then, like, then you get annoyed with people who are just, not even caring about it and just spreading it to everybody else. Then it becomes the Adi Bhautika, right? And whether
Okay.
and even, like, you can think about it, like whether I am being very careful, am I, washing my hands and sanitizing, am I wearing my mask? So if I don't do that, then I blame God or I blame somebody else. I should have taken my precautions. Then it becomes like, if I'm giving it to myself, then it actually becomes Adhyatmika as well.
But
It
yeah,
has all three sorrows. What a strong virus.
And we will never find out if it was purposely initiated.
yeah, but the WHO says that it's from the animals, right? So how it has come from animals to the man is by eating. So it is actually not a God caused thing, but I feel it is more human caused thing. I don't know.
Yeah, I am with ya. And that's what I'm saying. Like, if I don't wear masks and if I'm not careful about my health and I just do whatever, it comes to mind, then it is caused by myself. But if I'm spreading to other people, then other people know that I am the one that's causing them the problem. And at a mass scale, I think we discussed about this at some point. Though there is, the virus, and we are all suffering in various degrees, but some people might have suffered personal loss, and some other people might have suffered financial loss, or the degree of the suffering has ranged quite a bit as well. So, and a lot of that would fall into those three categories. So something like this, I think everything is in play. And there are three more that we talk about: Adi, Yagnika, etc. So I'll post about it in the forum.
Gigi, that's the whole concept of life. I'm just taking a back seat and having a laugh at it because God is making us do many things, like from the karma and giving birth and then getting married. And there's always invariably so many issues, so many problems. And then He's giving us the Gita telling, oh, you take it, okay, don't be affected. And you will say wise and don't get pressurized by all this. Don't consider, it's just about not easy. Yeah? It's very difficult within a married life, definitely. If you're single at one point, maybe everything is with you and you can do, but within the course of it's hard, Shriji. And then I'm thinking he's standing like all these people who create problems and stand back and then watch and say, I've given you the tool to solve. You fight it out.
Oh, for sure. It's about how we take it, right? Like, that's the whole point, is the same set of problems, like, all of us are facing. Like, otherwise we wouldn't have had, like, in our generation, a global pandemic. In such case, how many of us would have taken it to, on a more positive light, and we are spending time, studying Gita, or spending time, like, chanting something, and we're just doing something positive with the time that has been given to us. And some others may be suffering a lot more, whether it is emotionally or psychologically, like, in whatever dimensions you can think about. And some could be induced. I'm not saying, like, it's all personal struggle, but how you approach things is what Gita tries to teach us. Okay. Would you like to read, Padmaji?
Oh, okay. Where are we here? Yeah.
This one, a wise person's response to Sukha. So the first one, Dukkeshu Anudvignamanaha, we finished that. Now we are going to Sukheshu
Yeah.
Vidita
Yeah.
Spruhaha.
So what about pleasure, sukha then? There are people who can remain quiet when dukkha comes, but jump around like a football when something pleasant happens. The word sukheshu here refers to, say, happy, pleasant situation, regardless of its source, which can also be described in the same threefold manner. Sukha can come from your own, Sriji, I need page here. Sukha can come from your own sensory pleasure, from some external event, external event or yearning for such pleasures. Sukheshu, Sukheshu spraha, spraha. But does a white person not laugh when something funny is happening? Just like me, huh? Yes, yes, there is no echo. Once more from the person, no longing. Recognizing both pain and pleasure, he or she is not carried away by either of them. Sukheshu vigata prahaha, dukheshu anuvigna manaha. This
Anudvignamana.
Anudvigna manaha. Yeah. This characteristic then becomes a sadhana for a mumukshu. Shankara, in his commentary to this verse, gives the example of fire. If you feed the fire with more wood, it will grow even more. Vidhartate. In keeping with the fire that has been offered, it grows to become a big configuration. Conflagration. When you first light a fire, it always starts as a flame, but set one match to a tank of gas, and you will see, and you have an instant conflagration. Thus, the more the fuel, the more the fire. Unlike the fires, Shankara said, the wise person's sukha resolves in himself or herself, in his or her fullness. The idea here is, since there is no yearning for sukha, a person's desires do not get out of hand. Krishna also said in this verse that one who is not swept away by either sukha or dukkha is free of all of likes, fear, and anger. He is vitaraga, bhaya, Krodaha. Sorry, I couldn't read this properly. Freedom from raga implies freedom from dvesha also. They are a pair. When one is mentioned, the other one is automatically understood to be included. In other words, they go together. The happiness of those who are not in the hands of raga dvesha is not determined. Sriji, I need
You're here?
Yeah. It's not determined by their raga dveshas. Their raga dveshas do not affect their being happy with themselves. The raga dveshas no longer have any teeth. They may be baby raga dveshas or old raga dveshas, but either way, they do not bite because they cannot bite. They can only be enjoyed. This is why the ragadvesha of the wise are referred to as non-binding. They are toothless.
Awesome.
So
we'll just pause here as well. So does anybody feel like, oh my God, a jnani's life is so boring, he can neither be elated nor cry? Did anybody feel that way? It sounds boring, right?
Exactly what I was thinking. It sounds like a zombie.
I read your mind, Satiji. So it is so much. Go ahead, Padmaji.
No. So he can enjoy everything. There's nothing that he cannot enjoy. He can really enjoy and still be called a jnani.
The thing is, they are in the moment, they enjoy, but they don't seek that happiness. It is not an addiction to them. For example, like, I have coffee in the morning and I don't need coffee for the next year. I am okay to have that one coffee and that's fine. But every morning I look forward to having coffee. And if I don't have it, then I might just go into, if I get coffee, then I'm super elated. If I don't get it, I'm going to be cranky. That pendulum, that swing is what, what Bhagavan is saying, avoid that. So you would see, like, when Swamiji is talking in his classes or Swami Paramathananji, there is so much of laughter. They joke and they're such fun people to be having a conversation with. They're just very human. It's not like I don't want to talk to anybody, but it is, if we go and chat with them, they're joking, but at the same time, if we tell a joke, they will laugh. But they're not looking for somebody to come and entertain them or for them to have time, like fun time. They can just be on their own and be meditating and be as happy as if we're there in a whole group of students. So that is what they're talking about, or Bhagavan is talking about. To think about, like how Krishna was among the gopis. He was very happy in like if he was just on his own and he would be playing his flute, he just even beautiful pictures of Krishna, you just feel that calmness in him, as if he is enjoying himself. And that's what we need to generate, like from within. That ananda is within. It is not that somebody has to tell us a joke. And we always say, yeah, oh my god, like my head is aching and I need to watch a comedy movie. The comedy movie will last for an hour, and maybe it's very difficult. Like I personally feel like it's very difficult to make somebody else laugh. They might be able to know that fake laughter might come, and then you're back after 3 hours just on your own. What my mother used to say, you don't carry anything else with you as much as you carry yourself. You're with yourself all the time, no matter what. And if you are the most sanitized version of yourself, then you really don't need anything else outside of you. So I never understood it until I actually went through Gita and I actually ponder on that. So how clean from within, or how transparent are you within, that you are easily able to access that source of ananda from within, that you feel like everything else is, in Shankaracharya's words, tuchha. Everything else feels so small, so minuscule in the ananda, in the bliss that you find within yourself. And so even Swamiji says, dig for that ananda within. Okay, we'll go to the next one with that. Who would like to read this? So now we are moving into the third quartlet. In this we have three. Vita, so Vita is free. Raga, Bhaya, Krodha. So we are talking about Bhaya here. Somebody said they would want it to read. Please go ahead.
Yeah. The absence of fear. Once raga is gone, fear also goes. Fear exists only when desire is there, and desire is there only when raga dvesha is there. Kama indicates duality. It is due to the notion I am this much alone. Everything else is other than me and I have to get it. Thus, there is duality, meaning that there is a difference between Jiva, the individual, and Ishvara, the Lord, Jiveshwara Beda. Naturally, then, there will be fear because a difference between the individual and the Lord implies duality between the individual and the world. And duality between the individual and the world means duality between individual and individual. Once you accept a duality between the individual and Ishvara, you will find difference, Beda, everywhere. Can you please? Yeah. If you think that you are different from Ishvara, you will think that you are different from the world and from everyone else in the world. And in this world of duality, you are an insecure person. Therefore, the fear of danger from another source will always be there because the other will always be there. Fear comes from duality only. Any fear means that duality is there because you recognize the source of fear as something other than yourself. You can even be afraid of yourself if you have created a split in yourself. There is an ideal I and an actual I, and the actual I is always frightening to the ideal I. This is also the reason why you are afraid of an insane person, provided you are sane, of course. Similarly, you may find that you are afraid of a person who is sad. There can be no fear if there is only one thing, vastu, vastu. A second
Vastu.
thing, vastu. Thank you. A second thing is necessary for fear to occur. Therefore, the one who has no duality is not only free from ragadvesha, but is also free from fear. Shall I
Okay,
go on?
we'll pause here as well. So this is extremely important. This is the essence of Vedanta. So we'll just take a nice example that is given in Bhagavad Gita. So when Arjuna asks Bhagavan to see the Vishwarupam, he says, I've been your friend and you're telling me these are all your vibhutis. Can I see your real Swarupam? And then in Vishwarupa Sandarshana Yogam, as everybody knows, Bhagavan presents himself as this whole universe, right? And a magnanimous of a presence of himself. And Arjuna starts with stuti. He is like, he's in this ascharyam, and then he does a whole nice beautiful stotram, and then he says, I'm so scared, by just looking at you in this form. Can you just come back to the normal state, like, the Krishna that I've known? And so when Bhagavan is in you and you are in Bhagavan, that there is no fear. But when you see that duality as like, when Arjuna was outside and then just watching this universe form of Bhagavan, there is that, you get scared because you are not part of him. So that's how you can analogize, or if that's the word, with this one. But what we are talking about, when there is a second thing, that's when we get scared, or we get that fear. So it is single vastu, as we've been looking at. If it is, there is samudram, there is the wave, and there is a droplet, but the commonality among all of that is water. So the droplet can continue to feel that it is such a small piece, a minuscule part of the whole samudram that exists, but it can say, I am water and I am no different from the samudram. So I am part of the samudram. I'm not the samudram, definitely, but I am no different. And understanding that nature, the innate nature of ourselves, and being able to see everything as Bhagavan, and we are just part of that whole, the fabric of what Bhagavan is, that actually relieves us from that bhasyam, is what is being explained here. It's very important if you want to highlight that whole topic and reread for yourself, and we can discuss in the forum. It's the essence of Vedanta. Okay, we'll go to the next one. Who would like to read this?
Sriji, this Vishwarupa Darshanam, what's in the battlefield itself? That's what is in
Yes,
chapter 11 you were mentioning?
correct. Yeah, it's in the back.
Okay. Okay. That's chapter 11, Sriji?
Correct, chapter 11.
Okay.
Sriji, this reminds me of a story that I read somewhere. So someone asked a sage, who lives in a forest among wild animals, how come you're not afraid of the animals? So the sage says, because you see them different from you, I don't. So I'm not scared or afraid of those animals.
Yeah. And how many of those that we know that actually were able to just communicate with the animals, and the animal just suddenly stops, and that happens even now with all of these sadhakas who are who live in the wilderness, and they don't really have any interest in the what's happening with whether iPhone is releasing their new release, or if there is a movie that's being released. They don't care, because the ananda that they get innately, I think, is so satisfactory to them. They don't even care about anything, and they're able to communicate. And I have known one jnani who actually talks about how this whole process works. And after many thousands of hours of meditation, he talks about being able to sense what a spider is doing, like, or what a spider is thinking, or what a spider's movements are going to be. He talks about it almost as I can hear, like, I can feel the spider's movements as if, it's not very different. That distinction of who I am versus, what the external world is, that distinction will reduce as people are understanding this knowledge. But that is like, a larger way of just meditating and getting into that whole Advaita Bhavana, the aparoksha anubhuti. We have talked about that previously. But even understanding, having the paroksha jnanam itself will help us, at least elevate ourselves psychologically beyond these, like, the dukkhas and the sukhas and the raga, krodha, bhaya, and all of those, like, mada, matsarya, everything, all the sequence of events. Okay.
As we are speaking, Ramana Maharshi keeps coming to mind. It's like he's the one who was supposed to have been meditating when leeches sat on him and drank his blood. He didn't even care when cancer struck him. He didn't even want any treatment.
Yeah.
That is just amazing.
Yeah. And the same story for, like, Ramakrishna Paramhamsa, the same, like, some illness, a fatal illness. I think it is related to cancer, but in those days they did not call that. And he went to the same thing and he said, I don't want any treatment and I'm just going to meditate. And, when you think about Swami Vivekananda, he knew the date. I heard he marked on a calendar on the date that he absolutely needed to go and meditate. So some of these people, they just, find that happiness within themselves, and they know how to extract the, the energy from the outside into the body and exchange that knowledge, that jnanam. It's quite powerful that way. Yeah.
I can read.
Please go ahead.
Anger also goes. A wise person is free from anger, and anger is nothing but another form of raga. The desire itself is transformed into anger. First, the desire is in a beginning form, and then it gets transformed into another form, an ugly form, anger. We will be seeing this later in the chapter. Kamat krodha abhijayate. When what you want is not accomplished due to some obstruction, that very karma turns into anger, whose target is the obstruction. Whatever is obstructing your desire becomes the object of your anger. Many murders take place because the objects of a person's love becomes the object of his or her anger. A man does not kill the loving woman, he kills only the obstinate or unwilling woman, and then he will cry for the loving one. Thus, when a person becomes an obstruction to your desire, that same person becomes the object of your anger. Anger is mutilated, transformed, deflected form of karma. Therefore, if you are free of karma, desire, you will be free of krodha, anger. Duality and fear.
We'll just take one moment here, Bharati, and you can continue reading the next one. So there was once a meditation session that I went to, and the person who was conducting the meditation asked us to pick, the person that you are really angry about. And we were all thinking, like, I'm not angry on anybody. He said, whoever comes to mind, like, how much ever anger, even if it is like very, very basic angry. But he said, don't pick somebody like, who drives rashly on you, like, the person that you don't know, but just, you need to have a name and you need to have some connection with this person. And then he asked us to do, like, just write about 45 things that you appreciate in this person. And he was actually joking with us that, it's probably because I told you, this person you're really angry about and angry with. And therefore, it might be very easy for you to write the 45 things you don't like about the person. And it might be very difficult for you to write the 45 things that you really like or you really appreciate in this person. So the exercise, I know he was very insistent on making sure that we did the exercise thoroughly. And we actually had to find somebody. And we're thinking, like, who am I going to write about? And he said, no, there will be somebody in your life, not now, maybe from the past, whoever it may be. Just, find a person that you did not like or you don't like, and then just do this exercise. So, and when we did the exercise, we struggled coming up with, the first 10 were probably easy, and the next 10 were like, okay, fine, I'm just going to add these. And then you struggle with even finding the right words. But he said, like, obviously don't just Google adjectives and start putting them in. But as we were going through that exercise, after we finished 30, and then we were thinking so much positively about that person in order to get to the last 15. It was not easy at all for anybody in the class of 100. So we were just struggling, and my husband was also in that. So we were just thinking, like, and he knows who I may be thinking about, and I know who he may be thinking about. And he would just check with me, like, do you think this is this is true, or am I just coming up with terms? But I said, yeah, maybe that is a positive attribute of that person. So the way they were doing the exercise with us is essentially to think so much about the person in a positive way that you suddenly, towards the end of it, this person is not necessarily as bad as as I thought he might be or she might be, is how you would end up. So just try to do that exercise with on your own, and it was like 45 things, and he was insistent on 45 for some reason. But it was a fantastic exercise to just understand the krodha that we have in us is about a specific instance, and highlighted this particular thing. That person came in between you and your happiness. In many people do come in between our happiness and ourselves, and that could be an internet connection, could be anything. But certain people would have a little more influence on it, and we remember those activities. Otherwise, there is no reason for us to be angry with anyone except this. So note this point, highlight it, and think about the one person, and think what are the positive attributes, and then think about why you might have been angry with that person and what they might have caused a disturbance and caused that hurdle between obstruction between you and your happiness. And just is that one instance, or did they continue over a period of time? That's all a different thing. But everything comes back to this point when we say there is krodha. Note that, and just observe some trends, and it is very easy to get over it once we understand what might have caused it. It is not the person. They did not intend to do this, or maybe it is intentional, we don't know. But our desire and how strongly we desired something, and how strongly this person was influencing that desire, that's what breaks that that relationship between people, and that actually becomes the adi bhautika, and we blame it on that person for a very long period of time and carry that over longer periods, causing a lot more distress. Okay, go ahead,
But
Bhartaji.
Sriji, sometimes there are adharmic things, right? So this is when we take materialistic, okay, you can find some things. But when the whole behavior is on adharmic sides and you can clearly see it, it becomes very difficult.
It is very difficult, and I totally agree with you. But then it is our love for dharma and that person trying to get in between what we love and what we think is dharma, and the insensitivity to our sense of dharma is what that person is doing. And I'm not going to say that that I'm a sage by any means. I've mentioned it previously too, and everybody knows I absolutely detest forced conversions, religious conversions. And I they have their own intention, and it feels like it's very wrong, especially illiterate people, poor people, and they just manipulate them and forcefully convert. But if I have to personally, I am very scared of doing that analysis for myself, because I know why some people might be falling for them, and what did we do to those same people? Did we do enough to uplift them, and did they needed to go through this, and somebody else is taking advantage of them? So there is some analysis that I would personally do at some point in my life. I am not ready to face my own truth or my own dharma at this point, but I actually feel very angry when it comes to such things. But even that, we need to analyze what is dharma for us, and what they may be thinking is dharma. Something like twin towers, it is dharma for them apparently, and I will never get over that understanding why it is dharma for anybody to kill somebody else, like some innocent people. But they're just in a way they're doing what I think they've been taught. We never know.
Shriji, sometimes people get angry not because they don't dislike that person, but because they are afraid of losing that person.
Possibly.
Then also they get angry.
Yeah. And that's what, even Swamiji was giving this example, right? Like the same person he loves, and he kills that person because that person is not, reflecting the same emotion, or something's wrong with that relationship. And then he cries for the same person. So, and human relationships, I think, are the most complex to understand, and we have complicated them a lot more over the years. And how do we make them more transparent, and how do we make them more understanding? How do we be sensitive to other people? What are we giving instead of expecting what can they give? As Swami Paramarthananda ji says, I'm a sthita prajna as long as everybody behaves according to how I want them to behave. And the moment that doesn't happen, that's it. Like my raga, dvesha, kama, krodha, lobha, moha, mada, matsarya, everything will come into display. But so, it is about my sthita prajnatvam is dependent on everybody else's behavior around me.
So I might have
Absolutely true.
misunderstood or missed what you said. So if someone is doing adharma, you don't not like them for personal reason, but for whatever that you feel that is adharma, how do you forgive or not get upset with them?
So understanding there might have been some flaws in our own dharma, in the examples that I am giving, and understanding that there is some sort of dharma that is being taught to them, that they are forced to do those activities. It is not their own personal, somebody like a terrorist, I heard, is like really like a happy family man, and enjoys playing with kids and all of those sweet things. And somehow it is their understanding of what dharma is for them, right? So how do we deny that?
Shriji, and what was the collective insight of that 100 people doing that experiment? Did everybody feel on the same, or what was the insight? What were the insights for that?
Yeah, so the insights, as that the person who was conducting the meditation session for us, he said it is not just this group. He might have taught some more than 10,000 people, and he was saying across all the sessions that he has conducted, it comes down to, oh, this person isn't really as bad as what I thought, or I don't have the same kind of feelings for this person as. It was more like he was leading us into forgiveness exercise afterwards. And everybody feels that no matter how and whoever that person is, everybody has those as many great qualities as for example, let's think about the terrorist we were just talking about. Do we know that person is astute? He's probably very disciplined. He knows if he is determined, he can do whatever. Even in the last minute, he would not take a step back. Even there are so many things that you could write even about somebody like that. And just understanding what it's like seeing deeper than an individual act or a set of acts that are very specific to me and that person. In the case, we were doing it and he was very specific. Don't take like a Hitler or somebody. Just take somebody who is personally you are in touch with and you have interacted with, and they caused you anger. But he was saying across everybody, and that's how we felt too. There's so much positiveness in everybody. And I keep asking this question to my son and my husband. We discuss this quite a bit at home, and I sometimes raise it even with my colleagues as we do public relations and communications, etc. We think about my question to my husband, as we were discussing this, was how many of the close to 8 billion people that are on earth right now wake up in the morning and say, new day, I am going to harm somebody, or I am going to hurt somebody on purpose. And that is what I would love to do this morning. Hardly, 1%, even if you want to give that. But what we see in the news, what we read about, everything, all the communication, if you want to, just go to Amazon Prime or Netflix, just look at the number of movies that are on murders and investigations and rapes, and you think like, why is it that, everything is focused on that 1%? And why not on the 99% positiveness? Think about the number of people that are around you and you interact with. In our lifetime, we would probably meet 5,000, 10,000 people. And how many of these people actually fall into any of these categories for that matter? But somehow there is masala, there is a lot more money to be made by portraying those things. And that's where I talk about responsible journalism, and we're doing some research project on that over a period of time, how journalism has fallen down prey to dollars and external influences, and how that has changed our perception of life generally, and how things get influenced, and how are we getting dragged into it versus how do we elevate ourselves. And a book from 5,000 years is what they say, and probably it is 5,000 years when Krishna taught this actually uplifts us so much versus what happens, and which one do we want to be influenced by. And that's our choice.
Actually, journalists are exploiting the fact that human mind thrives on negativity.
Because they're creating that, the raga, the dvesha, the kama, krodha, everything in our minds. And Padmaji always says one thing to me. My world is very different. I'm talking about capitalism, spending and marketing, and just talking about all of these external stuff. And then the whole world pushes us towards making a lot more money. Like, I need to buy a lot bigger house, I need a pool in my backyard. That is the kind of world that we face. But the moment you say that is the bahya prapancham, right? And as soon as we start focusing on, wait a second, I've tried all of those things and it doesn't give me the permanent happiness. I am continuously looking for this happiness over a period of time. I've tried all of those. Now I want to stay. Just think, focus on myself, ponder upon what's happening, take a moment, take a break, and then reflect. And then taking 180 degrees and walking inwards, that's where you will find it. You will find that real Ananda. And then that Ananda reflects in the expanse of the world that you interact with. And then you will see a lot more the spring, the blossoms around you. And people start noticing those differences in you. People start reflecting with you, or interacting with you in a completely different way. And I mentioned in the past as well, I thought I wanted to experiment with, is it just my close immediate peers, is it my colleagues, or can I influence the same positivity if I was just doing this experiment? And I told you about Akshay Vidya experiment that I did when I went to India the previous October 2019. And my husband was with me, and the amount of positiveness that I have received back, as it was just looking into somebody's eyes, and as if I'm speaking to that person as if I'm talking to Bhagavan himself, because through eyes, that is Akshay Vidya from Upanishads. So you're looking through the Atman, and Atman reflects through the eyes. So you're looking at somebody's eyes, and just as if you're speaking to Bhagavan himself. And the smile, the beautiful smile that comes out as you're interacting with him, that bhavana, that same bhavana comes back to you. That person immediately knows what you're feeling maybe, and then they will reflect the same feeling. And I've had emotions that I would just suddenly tear up, and my husband says don't tear up like that in breakfast, people will think you have problems. And my husband and my son joke a lot about it with me. It is just seeing that Bhagavan in everybody, and the change starts from us. It is within us before you expect somebody else who may be giving you anger. Just change that interaction with them from within, and you will see the positiveness coming back towards you. And that's how we would change our world. And recently in a different forum, I was writing something, so I would like to see. And this is like another Vishnu Sahasranamam group that we have. And in that, the discussion was Bhagavan being like, the doctor. And so we were just talking about, this is what I said, the Bhagavan, Bhishak is the nama, and the meaning is the physician. So the description was about doctors and things like that. So I said, this is so true. An unfortunate reality of is not only about the contemporary doctors, but also today's medicine and science, because it doesn't really understand. It's all about, immediate solution. I have a headache, immediately I have to get rid of it. Therefore, I'll take an Advil or two, and that's it. Like, I won't even think about the influence that Advil is having on my body, whether it is good for me or what reactions it would have over a period of time. I don't think about it. I want immediate solution. That is a problem in the current world. I feel if we can inspire an age where the following are real and not lip service, then we have solved 80% of current world issues. The first one is Guru Brahma, Guru Vishnu, Vaidyo Narayano Harihi, Adhiti Devo Bhava, Annam Parabrahma Swarupam. In ancient Bharat, 4 things were not for sale: Vidya, Vaidyam, Atithyam, and Bhojanam. Now these are mega industries worth trillions of dollars per annum. So that's the kind of world we have moved into, and it is individuals that can make a change. We can only change ourselves. We cannot change the whole universe yet, but someday people will understand.
Shriji, if it is Kali Yuga, do you think we can still change it? It's only going the wrong way, right?
But at the same time, that's the discussion I think you and I had about destiny and our own prarabdha versus what we can do to influence it, right? What is the kind of world that we're giving our children? And if we know this is Kali, do we even, give this Kali to our children? What is the next generation going to look like?
We can do everything possible to make it better place. But
yeah. And the more when we, by understanding Sanskritam, our own culture, and how it was all about somebody else. It's not about me. It's all people-centered. It's all about knowledge-centered. It's not money-centered. It's not, how much. Aparigraham is one of the words that we talk about as the attributes. Parigraham is how much can I gather. Aparigraham is how much I will only take what is needed for me versus how much more I need. So it's about the difference between, the marketing world where we say we need so much more. And that's my day job, by the way. That's what I do for a living. But how much do I really need? And what is that? How do I practice aparigraham in a world that is all about capitalism and how it's all about needs and wants and luxuries? Okay, heavy discussion, I guess. Shall we conclude here?
Shriji, can you repeat the last Annam portion? The 4th one.
So, Annam Parabrahma Swarupam.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, in our just think about 2 generations ago, or our own generation, of our parents' generation, we would just welcome anybody home. Now we feel like any stranger comes and knocks on the door, you just don't even want to see that person or talk to that person. You want to see it through the camera, safe, and then we open the door. So that's what it has come down to, versus think about our younger days. Doors were open. We did not close the doors and sat inside. Doors were open. Our neighbors could anybody could come in, to talk to us anytime. It was a lot more open, and just see just within our own lifetimes, within a few decades, how things have changed. So the more we understand our own culture, the more we can maintain or sustain a lifestyle that we can give to our kids.
Repeat the 4 again, please. I'm sorry.
Guru Brahma, Guru Vishnu, where Guru was, supposed to be equal to Brahma, Vishnu, Maheshwara, and the Parabrahman himself. So we used to chant that shloka for all gurus, and that's how gurus were. Now education is a business. When education was, sharing knowledge, and they did not do it for a certain, with an expectation of return of money. Then Vaidyo Narayano Harihi. Medicine was just given for free. We thought Vaidya is equal to Narayana himself. And now medical industry is an, $1 trillion industry, multiple trillions of dollars of industry.
Vaidya Narayano.
Vaidyo Narayano Hari.
Okay.
And then Athithi Devo Bhava. We welcomed everybody, we fed them, we gave them the argyam, padyam, everything. There used to be massive, whatever those brass, huge pots with water, so people could wash their feet as they come in. That was all set outside. Anybody was welcome. Now hospitality is an industry. Annam Parabrahma Swarupam. And then everything is about food, right? Mega food industries.
Sriji, Padma here, yeah. Just we had 1 week holiday, okay? And then we are having this class. So nice discussion. You're talking about raga, dvesha. How can we stay without this nice discussion? So kindly rethink your strategy, okay?
Yeah. Well, actually, I felt, even that is raga. I personally never intended, or I never presented myself as a guru. I never think I am even I'm a dhuli in the feet, under the feet of some great gurus we know. So it is the attachment that I think, I'm building for each of you, and the attachment that I'm getting from each of you.
The attachment is to the Gita. It's attachment for the Lord's words. Just think of it, Sriji. You're doing selfless service. And now you're putting a stop to that selfless service. Think our dvesha is our dvesha is towards the Lord. We are trying to understand